Good evening and welcome to NewsNight. Tonight we'll have all your international, national, and local news. I'm Devin Ami.
And I'm Erin Ute. Find out more about what's happening in countries around the world such as Sudan, Iran, and China. We'll also have all the details about a fatal bridge collapse in Missouri and about grants that the Biden administration is granting to schools around the U.S.
Our anchors will give you all your local Pittsburgh news. Hear about a Pittsburgh-based company that is closing its doors for production. Also, you'll hear more about one of the most anticipated Pittsburgh events of the Christmas season.
All this and more coming up on NewsNight.
Efforts to prevent a death by stoning are struggling. A 20-year-old woman from Sudan was sentenced to be stoned to death after being convicted of adultery. Many say she had not received a fair trial, as she wasn't allowed to speak to a lawyer when being held in custody, according to BBC. The woman was also completely unaware of the charges being held against her. She was found guilty of adultery in June after an accusation from her husband. She separated from her husband in 2020 and was living with her family until a year later when he accused her of the act. The death penalty is still used in Sudan for crimes such as adultery and theft and is punishable by flogging, stoning, and hanging. There have been attempts and even government pledges for the removal of death by stoning. However, it still is yet to happen. Hala Akarib, the Strategic Initiative for Women's Regional Director, told BBC, quote, "We are concerned that the appeal court will not rule in the young woman's favor. This may be a shocking ruling globally, but it doesn't come as a shock to us," end quote. The Sudanese woman filed an appeal. However, there are no ministers available to demand her release. Her appeal is just now being heard and a judgment from the court is awaiting.
The International Energy Agency, or the IEA, said in a new report that the world faces its first, quote, truly global energy crisis, as a result of Russia's invasion of Ukraine continues to have long-lasting effects on energy supply and markets. The report added that unaffordable energy bills remain a huge problem, driven up as the exports of oil and gas have been restricted. But this also crisis should be seen as a turning point, according to the report, speeding up the world's transition to greener energy. The report said, quote, with unrelenting geopolitical and economic concerns, energy markets remain extremely vulnerable, and the crisis is a reminder of the fragility and unsustainability of the current global system. The heaviest burden is falling on poorer households where a larger share of income is spent on energy, end quote. The IEA calculated that the value of government spending to protect customers from price rises currently stands at $550 billion worldwide, and that the most effective policies to protect customers from the impact of soaring costs and changing energy infrastructures has been introduced by the US, Japan, and Korea. The report also said that for the first time ever, it forecasts, based on current prices and government policies, that the global demand for every fossil fuel will either be peaking or reaching a plateau. In more energy news, reporter Ashton Harder has more details about what city is working to build a new renewable energy farm in order to reduce emissions.
Chaozhou, a Chinese city, is planning on building an offshore wind farm so large that could power the whole country of Norway. The city has a one-of-a-kind offshore topography that the blustery seas are perfect for harvesting wind energy. The 43.3 gigawatt wind farm is explained in the city's 5-year plan. The goal is to provide notable amounts of renewable energy and to 2.5 million inhabitants, Located between 47 and 115 miles off the city's coast, the turbines are estimated to run for around 49% of the year.
Injustice is the word on everyone's mind in Iran as protests against the Islamic Republic turn into an effort for survival. Protests have sparked across all major cities in retaliation to water shortages, lack of women's rights, and most importantly, the lives of young activists and women targeted by the Revolutionary Guards. Revolutionary Guard Hossein Salami stated that the last day of the protest would be on Saturday. However, students in Iran universities have taken upon themselves to keep the protests going, resulting in over 1,000 people in Tehran alone to be charged and arrested. Abbas Milani, director of the Hamid and Christina Mogdaham program, stated that in an interview that, quote, people want democracy. Women insist on equality. A vast majority of people want a normal government at peace with the world. They want independence for a prosperous Iran, end quote.
The Miss Universe pageant centers its world to Thailand as Thai media tycoon and trans rights advocate Jaka Fong and Jakra Jutatip buys the Miss Universe organization. The organization was previously owned by both NBC and Donald Trump from 2002 to 2015, until the latter sold the company to WME. The competition is now owned by the JKN Global Group, a Thai-based media company that seeks to, quote, not only to continue its legacy of providing a platform to passionate individuals from diverse backgrounds, cultures, and traditions, but also evolve the brand for the next generation, end quote. The company hopes to expand the competition's reach to Asia, starting by opening a second headquarters in Sao Prakran, Thailand, alongside their New York counterpart, along with catering their merchandise to beauty fans by advertising new cosmetic and skincare lines. Coming up after a short break, we'll have all your national news. Find out more about the new Twitter ownership and what changes are being made to the social platform. Also hear more about the upcoming midterm elections. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, and welcome back to NewsNight. Most of the student body of the Pittsburgh Public School.
Some of the United States allies.
Thursday, the FBI was seen raiding.
Let's get started with today's forecast.
Today's high will only reach about 31 degrees.
It's looking a little cooler than we've seen in the past few weeks.
All this and more.
All this and more
All this and more coming up on NewsNight.
coming up on NewsNight.
Coming up on NewsNight.
After many months of business negotiation, Elon Musk is now in charge of Twitter. With this change, many are wondering what is to come and what exactly are his plans for the app. Through the last few months, there have been many hints as to what a Musk-owned Twitter would be like. He calls it X, or the Everything app, modeled after the Chinese WeChat, an app used every day in China. WeChat is a messaging app in the App Store and browser all in one, and this is similar to the route Musk plans to take with Twitter. Not only is Musk chasing this model for its super app format, but also for payments, something WeChat is also heavy on. There is potential for charging up to $20 a month to be a verified user. There is also talk of video editing features and a more creator-friendly platform. Content creators are the biggest influence in social media, so having a way to bring these creators and their audience to Twitter is important to Musk. Besides transforming the app into something bigger and the potential room for having to pay for certain in-app features, the biggest plan for Twitter is the idea of a free speech platform. Most social media hinders the allowance of what is said online, blocking out the ability to post certain content. Musk hopes to create a public sphere through Twitter, giving everyone the chance to say anything they want without interference, as long as it is legal. There is a widespread concern that this will turn Twitter into a hate-filled and overall toxic app, but Musk plans to use certain algorithms to de-escalate concerning content. With this argument and worry of toxicity, Musk took to Twitter stating, quote, "Twitter cannot become a free-for-all hellscape where anything can be said with no consequences," end quote, and that he wants Twitter to be a, quote, "place where you can choose your desired experience according to your preferences," end quote. Most of these ideas are still up in the air, but with time, we will begin to see where exactly Chief Twit, as he calls himself, now takes Twitter.
One person was killed and at least 3 others were injured after a Missouri bridge under construction collapsed and trapped 4 people in the debris. The bridge collapsed at the 148th Street and Shady Grove Road outside Kearney on last Wednesday, just before 2 p.m., the Clay County Sheriff's Office said in a news release. Contractors were pouring concrete on its deck when the bridge collapsed, officials said. The collapse trapped 4 people, but 3 were able to, quote, extricate themselves from the collapse, end quote. One man died, and the others who were able to get out were transported to area hospitals with minor injuries, officials said. Their identities were not released. The bridge has been closed since 2016, and construction started late last May to create a new 2-lane bridge set to open early next year, the sheriff's office said. There were multiple people contracting companies at the scene of the collapse, but no county employees were present, officials said. There were no safety concerns on the bridge project prior to the collapse, and an engineering contractor was on the scene last Wednesday, inspecting the bridge before the deck was poured, the sheriff's office said. Now that it's finally November, you know what that means. It's election time. Reporter Alex Sonneiser has more details on what's happening across the nation in anticipation for November 8th.
The general election will be held on November 8th. However, courtrooms have already begun to face several challenges. Over 100 lawsuits have been filed, mostly by Republicans. This is the most legal action that has been taken before an election, which usually occurs after votes have already been cast. These actions are taking aim at rules with mail-in voting, early voting, voter access, voting machines, etc. Party officials from the Republican National Committee are ready for recounts, contested elections, and forms of litigation. They have formed a multi-million-dollar election integrity team, hired 37 lawyers in key states, and held over 5,000 trainings to teach volunteers how to look for voter fraud. Democrats are also preparing for the election, but they are focusing more so on making voting easier and helping those who are denied a chance to vote. They have also interviewed in some Republican-led lawsuits. Regardless of what is happening, make sure to vote on November 8th.
Nearly 400 school districts across the U.S. are receiving roughly $1 billion in grants to purchase about 2,500 clean school buses under a new federal program, according to U.S. News. The Biden administration is making the grants available as a part of a wider effort to accelerate the transition to zero-emission vehicles and reduce air pollution near schools and communities. Michael Regan, Environmental Protection Agency Administrator, announced that the grant awards alongside Vice President Kamala Harris. Reagan stated, "The Clean Bus program is, quote, accelerating our nation's transition to electric and low-emission school buses while ensuring a brighter, healthier future for our children," end quote.
Coming up after the break, we'll have all your local Pittsburgh news. Find more about a local Walmart that will be closing its doors just in time for the holiday season. Also, hear more about a shooting in Pittsburgh's Beachview neighborhood. We'll be right back.
Within the next 3 weeks, Pittsburgh hopes to have homeless encampments along the Riverwalk by Fort Duquesne Boulevard gone. There isn't an exact date yet, however, there is hope that the opening of the new 2nd Avenue Commons homeless shelter will provide shelter for the homeless population in Pittsburgh. According to Mayor Ed Gainey, many involved are going out and recruiting the unsheltered to go to the center when it comes, as well as reaching encamped areas as a community in order to house them all together. Aaron Dalton, director of Allegheny County's Department of Human Services, told Pittsburgh Action 4 News that outreach teams are currently connecting with homeless people with details about the facility, stating, quote, "We've been working pretty deliberately across our partners and with the city for, I'd say, the past 4 weeks or so, really trying to make sure people are aware of the new recourse and get them signed up," end quote. Once the center opens, the city hopes to clean out the encampment areas and continue to keep them clean afterwards. There's still no exact date for when the 2nd Avenue shelter will open, but there are hopes that it will be up and coming, ready this November.
Argo AI, a self-driving technology company based in Pittsburgh, is shutting down. Its two largest investors, Ford Motor Company and Volkswagen AG, will absorb parts of the company, including some employees. It is unclear how many people will lose their jobs. In a statement Wednesday, Argo AI said, quote, "In coordination with our shareholders, the decision has been made that Argo AI will not continue on its mission as a company. Many of the employees will receive an opportunity to continue to work on automated driving technology with either Ford or Volkswagen, while employment for others will unfortunately come to an end," end quote. Multiple sources told 90.5 WESA that Argo's leadership delivered the news at a virtual all-staff meeting last Wednesday afternoon. Volkswagen latter said it would pull back its support for the company, according to the recruiters. The move comes on the heels of a round of layoffs in last July. At that time, about 150 people lost their jobs. Many of them had been involved in the recruiting and sourcing staff. The company said in a statement at the time that it was, quote, "making prudent adjustments to our business plan to best continue on path for success," end quote. Tech firms across the U.S. have struggled in today's economic downturn. Collectively, they've laid off more than 44,000 workers since the beginning of the year, according to Crunchbase. Following its founding in 2016, Argo hired more than 1,700 employees. The company has been valued at $7.5 billion in 2020. Together, Ford and Volkswagen have invested a reported $3.6 billion in the venture. The auto companies had partnered with Argo on various projects, including collaborations with Lyft and Walmart in Miami and in Austin. In 2021, Argo planned a round of private fundraising and had its ambitions of going public as soon as this year. Gun violence is a hot-button issue in Pittsburgh as of recently. Residents are beginning to feel that with every day comes a new gun-related incident. Reporter Ashton Harder has more details about one of these shootings.
17-year-old Clayton Tierney passed away in Beechview last Wednesday as a result of a gunshot to the head. It is estimated that he was shot around 4:20 p.m. at 1700 block Broadway Avenue. He was transported to UPMC Presbyterian in critical condition, but died just before midnight. One of the boy's neighbors, Karen, said, quote, "I'm not sure why it happened. I've known this family for 25 years. There is nothing that goes on over in that house. It is very scary because why did it happen to him? My heart is broken for them," end quote. No arrests have been announced, nor have any suspects been named. No further information has been made available. This shooting is not one-off. There has been a string of violence in the surrounding area for the past week.
The Walmart at the Waterworks Shopping Plaza in Aspinwall will permanently close its doors next month. According to KDKA, the company announced the closure on Monday, calling it an underperforming location and saying that the decision was made after reviewing, quote, "historic and current financial performances," end quote. Employees at this location will have the opportunity to transfer to other Walmart locations in the city. A sign on the entrance doors shows that the store is currently operating under hours from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and also encourages shoppers to visit their North Versailles and Tarentum locations. The Walmart Waterworks location was actually the closest Walmart to Point Park's campus. After the closure, however, the closest Walmart will be in Bridgeville. As of now, the final day for the store will be November 11th. One way that Pittsburgh is trying to get everyone into the holiday spirit is by announcing its 2022 Light Up Night festivities. Alex Zonizer has details about the way that PPG is getting merry and bright.
The 61st Annual Highmark Light Up Night will take place on November 19th in downtown Pittsburgh. It will have free musical performances, fireworks, tree lighting, and other activities. The holiday season will also bring the People's Gas Holiday Market in Market Square, the rink at PPG Place, and a night of merry karaoke. When asked about the holiday season, Jeremy Waldrop, president and CEO of Pittsburgh Downtown Partnership, said, quote, "Besides all the amazing holiday memories that will be made this year, it's a special opportunity to welcome and reconnect visitors, workers, and residents with downtown retailers, restaurants, entertainment, and cultural attractions that represent the best Pittsburgh has to offer during the holidays and all year long," end quote. The rink will also have special performances on its opening day with an ice figure skating show, a performance by the East End Kids, and a tribute of light ceremony honoring those who have been affected by cancer. A full schedule for Light Up Night attractions should be available soon.
Last week, President Joe Biden released a statement as Pittsburgh marked the 4-year anniversary of the Tree of Life synagogue shooting in Squirrel Hill. Biden's 5-paragraph statement touched on the horrific shooting killing 11 people on October 27, 2018. Biden remarked, quote, "In the 4 years since that terrible day, the people of Pittsburgh have shown us what it means to be stronger than hate, welcoming the community to Torah study sessions, showing their support for refugees and immigrants, reimagining the Tree of Life Synagogue as both a sanctuary and a memorial. The courage and character of the Pittsburgh community remains an inspiration to all," end quote. After the short break, we'll have your Pittsburgh weather report. Find out if you'll need to break out your trusty hat and gloves, or if it'll be warm enough to don your best tank top and flip-flops. Stick with us.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, and welcome back to NewsNight. Most of the student body of the Pittsburgh Public School.
Some of the United States allies.
Thursday, the FBI was seen raiding.
Let's get started with today's forecast.
Today's high will only reach about 31 degrees.
It's looking a little cooler than we've seen in the past few weeks.
All this and more
All this and more
All this and more coming up on NewsNight.
coming up on NewsNight.
coming up on NewsNight.
When Minnesota farmer Scott Legreed wasn't able to harvest his soybean and corn crops, more than a dozen people showed up to get the job done. In August, Legreed was seriously injured in a car accident when he swerved to avoid hitting a puppy in the road, resulting in him breaking his collarbone, a shoulder blade, and 7 ribs, among other injuries. When doctors told him he wouldn't be able to drive a tractor for several months, Legreed became very worried about his soybean and corn crops as he ran his farm of 600 acres almost entirely on his own. When word spread in the town of Frost, one neighbor was able to recruit 18 farmers to help Legreed harvest. In an interview, Legreed said, quote, "This is a busy time of year for farmers, so it meant the world to me. But I guess I really wasn't surprised. I'm lucky to live in a community where people have always looked out for each other," end quote. It's finally November. Will we be seeing any snow, or is it only sunny days ahead? Kalyan Winder has all the details for what we can expect from the Pittsburgh weather this week. Kalyan?
Thanks, Devin. Let's kick it off with tomorrow's weather forecast. The temperature is going to reach the high 60s with lots of sunshine. Luckily, there isn't any forecasted rain and definitely no snow. The day will be mostly sunny and mild with minimal cloud coverage. It's time to get some much-needed Pittsburgh sunshine before the winter takes over. The temperature at night will drop to 50 degrees. The skies will be pretty clear at night, so it's a good time to go stargazing and enjoy the weather. Let's move on to look at the week. the rest of the week is looking to be equally as beautiful. Saturday will be the highest temperature this week with a high of 77 degrees. The rest of the days are going to be warm with temperatures in the high 60s or mid 70s. The only day that we can expect a little bit of rain is Sunday. The high is going to reach 75 degrees and the low for the day will be around 60 degrees. Looks like we have a beautiful week ahead of us. Make sure to get out and enjoy this weather while you still can. You never know when it will decide it'll snow here in Pittsburgh. That's all I have. Back to you at the desk.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of NewsNight. If you want to see more, check out our social media pages on both Facebook and Instagram at UView Television.
You can also check out more episodes on our YouTube channel or our website, uview.pointpark.edu. I'm Devin Amee.
And I'm Erin Ute. From everyone here at NewsNight, thank you for watching and have a great evening.